Testing, testing. One, two, three, 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 three. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you for joining us for a special bonus episode, a special bonus surprise episode of the Backlook Cinema podcast which is me, Zoe. Actually, me and Zach went out to see a movie. I thought, let's go out and watch a movie, because there was a movie that I was sort of kind of interested in that came out this weekend, and it was Moonfall. And I thought, why not? So me and Zach, we went to go and watch the movie, and I wanted to give you my impressions of this particular disaster film. So as I said, this is bonus episode 10. And a curious thing happened to me while I was watching this movie. It was something that happened that kind of took me out of the movie. So the stars of the movie are people that you would recognize, that you've seen before. You had a nice little cameo in the movie. I'm not going to have any spoilers on this. I'm just giving you my impressions in case you wanted to see it. So there was an actor in the movie, and I could not really watch the movie because I knew who the actor was, but I couldn't figure out who it was, and it was bugging me. I was just, who is this guy? I don't know if you had that kind of I don't know what to call it, earwig, just something that's really bothering you, just festering in your mind, just eating at your brain, just pecking you because you know it. You know this person, or you know this object, or like you're looking for something, but you can't quite remember where you put it at. It's right on the tip of your tongue. It's like the tip of the tongue syndrome. You're thinking, and I'm looking at this guy every time he's on screen. Everything about him was familiar, but I could not remember where I seen him from. Did I see him on a YouTube video? No, that wasn't it. And it was the way he had an English accent, and it was the way his accent was, and that particular type of English accent, and the way he shook his head, because he had a kind of style of acting. It's like everything about him was familiar. I had seen this dude before, but I could not for the life of me figure it out. And I could not even enjoy the movie until I figured who this dude was. I just couldn't do it. I was out of the movie. I was outside of my head trying to figure out who this guy was. And finally, I think about a quarter of a way through the movie, I finally figured out who it was. It was a guy from the Game of Thrones. It was a Game of Thrones actor. He played, I'm trying to think of how you put it. He was a knight on the Night's Watch. And I forgot how he ended up on the Castle Black. He was always there. I'm not exactly sure, but he was good friends with the Winterfell dude. I can't remember his name, but the main Winterfell guy, you know who I'm talking about. If you're a fan of Game of Thrones, he was a friend of the main Winterfell guy who had went to Castle Black voluntarily instead of having to go to Castle Black as a punishment. So I think the character's name was Sam that he played. And he was kind of a fat dude. He was a stocky fat dude that was sent to Castle Black. He was on the Night's Watch. And he was the one that figured out that this special knife could kill the Night Walkers. What kind of knife was it? I forget. Eventually he gets sent to the main learning institution, because the men at Castle Black needed, I think they call him a maester. So basically somebody who was like a teacher or a wise man. So they sent this dude over to the university so that he can get that wise man education and then bring that knowledge back to Castle Black. That obviously none of that happened. You saw season 8, you know what I'm talking about. But anyways, I figured out who it was. So I'm going to mention his name as I tell you who's starring in this movie. I'm so relieved when after I remembered who he was, after I remembered that this guy was the guy on the Game of Thrones, I could watch the movie. I could relax and watch the movie and enjoy it as much as I could. And I'll explain that in a minute. So along with this dude, it's Halle Berry. She played Jocinda, or Joe Fowler. Patrick Wilson as Brian Harper, John Bradley as Casey Houseman. John Bradley, that's the guy that was on Game of Thrones. That's the guy that was bothering me. That's the guy that I could not enjoy the movie until I figured out who he was. Also starring Charlie Plummer as Sonny Harper, Michael Pena as Tom Lopez, Carolina Bartzak. Oh my goodness. There's a Z in the middle of this name, and I don't know where it goes. I don't know how to pronounce this. I apologize, Carolina. I got your first name, but Bartzak, there's a C, there's a Z. I don't know how to do it. Anyway, trying to push on. Carolina Bartzak played Brenda Lopez. Emmy Eichwalker, I know how to say his name because I looked it up. He being played by Doug Davidson. He had the unfortunate, how should I say that? He had the unfortunate experience of being remembered for being on Marvel's Inhumans. People talking about Marvel can't miss. Marvel only makes hits. Marvel only does the best type of movies, but they conveniently forget about the Inhumans. Nobody wants to talk about that anymore. Anyway, that's what Ike Walker did. He played Doug Davidson. And the last person I have on this list, although there are many more stars in this movie, is a cameo by Donald Sutherland playing Holdenfield or Holdenfeld. And this movie is directed, as you may know, by Roland Emmerich, the king of what's the word I'm looking for? Disaster movies. He's the king of the modern disaster film. He loves disaster movies. The more implausible the plot, the better. So what is this about? Let me read this from IMDb. Let me talk about this plot. In Moonfall, a mysterious force knocks the moon from its orbit around the Earth and sends it hurtling on a collision course with life as we know it. We're mere weeks from before it impacts, and the world is on the brink of annihilation. NASA executive and former astronaut Jo Fowler is convinced she has the key to saving us all. But only one astronaut from her past, Brian Harper, and a conspiracy theorist, Casey Houseman, believe her. These unlikely heroes will mount an impossible last-ditch mission into space, leaving behind everyone they love, only to find out that they might have prepared for the wrong mission. And that was given to us by Centropolis Entertainment. That's a pretty good synopsis. So, basic idea, moon is coming towards Earth. And we've got to figure out a way to stop it. The first thing that you might have conceived is that if the moon is going to crash into the Earth, there is no stopping it. None. But Roland Emmerich had really conceived of I don't know who, I forgot to write down who wrote the story. But you know, when you're a director, you kind of get credit for the story anyways. Then anyway, as the movie goes along, there's a somewhat plausible reason as why the moon's hurtling towards the Earth. And that's my greatest appreciation for this film. That's why I wanted to see the film. It's like, how are they going to pull this off? And they pulled it off quite nicely. Some of the things that they attached to the story was, you really have to have, you really have to accept it in a way. You have to really, really release your, what's the word I'm looking for? You have to have a strong suspension of disbelief. That's what this movie requires. And if you have a strong enough suspension of disbelief, then you will be able to get to this movie. But another problem is that there are, as unlikely as it is that the moon would crash into the Earth, fun fact for all you science nerds out there, the moon is actually moving farther and farther away from the Earth. Every year, the moon is actually drifting away from the Earth. The good news is that the sun will destroy the Earth long before the moon breaks its orbit from the Earth. So the moon will be there until the end of humanity. But on with describing the movie. More than just the moon smashing into the Earth, more implausible than that is stuff that happens in the movie, like just logistical stuff that happens in the movie that cannot occur. There's like certain things that cannot happen in real life are happening in this movie. So it's more likely that the moon will crash into the earth than some of the logistical stuff that happens in this movie. And a lot of the dialogue is clunky, and there are some events within the movie that are just too predictable, because you kind of see it in every disaster movie. Like once you see some of these things in one disaster movie, these events happen in many disaster movies, almost like clockwork. It's like, okay, now it's time for that guy to die, and the guy dies just like you thought he would. So yeah, there's a lot of that going on in this movie. A lot of destruction. Not even the destruction looked as pretty. Like the last movie that Roland Emmerich did that I actually enjoyed was Independence Day, and I haven't enjoyed one movie that he has directed since then. Well, okay, I'll admit I did enjoy Godzilla a little bit, but he kind of ruined it because he wanted, like in an interview when they talked about him making Godzilla, they wanted Godzilla to be like a regular lizard, like just a giant sized lizard. And that didn't work for me because I need Godzilla to breathe fire. It's not Godzilla if he's not blowing flame out of his mouth, if he doesn't have his atomic breath, then it's not Godzilla to me. Like I grew up in a time where Godzilla could use his atomic breath as thrust and basically shoot off in the air like a rocket, just shooting out his atomic breath as the thrust to shoot him in the air. As corny as that sounds. So if you have a Godzilla and it's not shooting out atomic breath, it's just not Godzilla to me. And Roland Emmerich's Godzilla did not shoot out atomic breath. So that's why I had a problem with Godzilla. But all the other disaster movies that he did, it was just too much. Like in this movie, there's too much happening at the same time that like it's too much story. And it's not really creating the right amount of tension, and basically kind of just sitting there, just kind of waiting for the movie to be over. Like I know what's going to happen, and the road to get there isn't really interesting to me, so I'm just kind of waiting for it. Now, by contrast, Zachary really enjoyed this movie. Now he saw a lot of the same problems that I did, but he enjoyed it nonetheless. But for me, it was the logistical stuff that was implausible had bugged me, and the some of the dialogue had bugged me, and some of the relationships kind of bugged me. Some of the story was like he stacked story on top of story. I guess he kind of did that to build character, but there was just too much story in this movie, if that makes sense. Like, you know, you're a divorced woman, you have a son, and you have a foreign exchange student living with you, and it's the end of the world. It seemed too much stacked on stuff. Like it seemed unnecessarily. It seemed like too much stuff going on, and it made it hard to enjoy the movie. So those are my impressions. I didn't really enjoy it as much as I thought I would. I didn't expect too much, to be honest. And it didn't surprise me. I wish that it was way better than what I expected. I went in with very low expectations, and it basically met those low expectations. So I would advise that you wait for it to come on streaming. I guarantee you it'll be on streaming in maybe a couple of months, probably a month. I don't expect this movie to stay in the theaters long, especially there's a movie that stars Gal Gadot. It's a mystery thing that's coming out next week. I forgot what it's called, and it looks pretty good. I'll probably go see that. I expect it to be better. And I think that it's based on a famous French detective. I think they used to make movies of this guy. I think this guy is named Perot. I can't remember. It's like right on the tip of my tongue. I guess I should have did some research before I started recording the show, but I didn't. I just got stuff that's on the fringes of my memory. It's I think it's called Murder in the Nile, Murder Across the Nile, something like that. It's a boat and they're on the Nile. Somebody gets murdered. It stars Gal Gadot. They're going to try to solve the mystery. I expect that to be way better than Moonfall, and I think that because of that and movies that are coming at the rest of the month, that Moonfall will be on your streaming services quite shortly. So I advise you wait. I don't think that you should risk catching COVID to watch this movie. I did it for you. I risked my health to go watch this movie, and I can tell you I don't think it's worth the risk. So that's all I got. It's just a short episode, a bonus episode, a surprise bonus episode, if you will, to let you know what I thought of Moonfall. So if you could do me the favor and subscribe and give me those lovely stars, if you would, from Apple Podcasts, and share it with somebody. Share this episode to let other people know to, probably wait for Moonfall on your favorite streaming service coming soon. And that's all I got. Have a nice one.